All eyes are on tomorrow, with Arrowhead already making it known that there is a reversal incoming for a controversial change, but also, and even more significant, information incoming for what they plan to do with another major issue in the coming days. Plus, we need to break down the good, the bad, and the ugly from last week's patch and Warbond release. So sit back and take it all in as we dive into some of the topics from Helldivers. With last week's update 6.2.2 and of course the Exo Experts Warbond, we saw that microcosm of Helldivers cycles heading up and down from, oh, that's a good change, over to what the fuck were they thinking, leading to a mini review bomb on Steam. And now, nearly a week after Arrowhead decided to launch the patch and Warbond Live, we're looking at a game that is sitting at a 41% positive rating on Steam based on recent reviews. But now that I've had a week under my belt to really dive in and test out everything they added or changed, it's time to swing back around for a breakdown of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I've been reading your feedback on various social platforms, including my video comment sections. Thank you very much for leaving those comments, by the way. And I've also been extensively playing and testing everything here as well. And at this point, I actually think overall we're pretty close to being aligned on many to most of the main issues. And with that, let's actually dive on into just before update 6.2.2 in the Exo Experts Warbond. And as we look back on it now, hindsight being 2020, what many of us were saying in the community prior to the Warbond and patch, with us expressing concerns of the pattern of Arrowheads fixing long broken items only when a paid Warbond was releasing, and how they were essentially crossing the Rubicon when it came to including vehicles in a paid Warbond, seems to have not landed very well overall with the broader HD2 player base. Sure, there are those out there that felt everything was fine, Arrowhead can do no wrong, and just in case you didn't know, you can farm for those super credits, guys, so Arrowhead is essentially giving you the Exo Experts Warbond for free. But what we saw in these arguments was a very small fraction of the player base, and this wasn't the true or exact entire picture. Helldivers did jump up the Steam top 100 charts pretty quickly with Exo Experts. I mean, that's a fact. But whereas, say, with Redacted Regiment or Entrenched Division, those were well-received Warbonds that bolstered HD2 on those Steam sales charts. And it showed real staying power, keeping the game in the top 10 for a decent amount of time. On the other hand, Exo started sliding quickly, now showing HD2 sitting at 23rd place exactly a week after this new Warbond's release. Above everything, it's charts like these that show the dollars generated or lost, along with the negative reviews being left on Steam, that probably pushed Arrowhead to make the changes they did and to start opening up the lines of communication once more, vowing to listen to the community, which is a positive from last week. I mean, hell, it may be short-lived, and they may go comms dark a week from now, but at least for a week, we saw all sorts of questions and answers posting to the Discord from members of their dev team. I mean, we saw the former CEO take to the unfiltered Reddit for an AMA, and a whole lot more. Now, I know that actions speak louder than words. Listen, I get it. But there was at least some form of movement on the studio's part, even if it was minuscule. And if those lines of communication and action can be maintained, we might be able to get this thing headed overall in the right direction. But as we know, last week's patch was overall really rough, with a few positives thrown in as well, in terms of what Arrowhead decided to push through for patch 6.2.2. And we might as well start off with the two new biomes. After getting blurred over with fog, and more fog for the past few years, I've got to say it's really nice to be able to see for once. And the new meadows and forest on the first biome, along with the beachy desert planet we unlocked earlier today, are both beautiful. Now, of course, they only look that way for about 0.7 of a second before we start bombarding them from space. But for both of these new biomes, I've got to say, Arrowhead cooked. Admittedly, I'm not much of a melee build kind of diver, but there were some, let's call them okay, changes here for melee weapons, with the decrease in stamina cost, with both the stun baton and defoliation tools getting actually a lot of needed buffs and reworked mechanics. The only one of our melee weapons I occasionally use is the stun baton, and it's good to see it get some much needed love. And when I have reached out to viewers for feedback on the melee changes, I really haven't seen anyone going crazy over how good or bad they were, so we'll characterize the changes as niche and kind of meh. Seeing the spear pick up one more ammo in the backpack could also be placed in the meh category. I mean, the spear is still a hungry stratagem and can often miss critical kill shots requiring a reload and follow-up shot, but I do bring it out on the bot fronts from time to time to handle turrets from extreme ranges, but overall it still hovers around a 3.7 to 1.1% pick rate depending on faction, with one more round doing little to sway players to pick it up with greater frequency. So in terms of the change, it's pretty neutral. The Flame Sentry buffs to range damage and how fast it panics enemies are actually pretty good. You know, I've started to mix this Sentry into my all flame build setups, and when I can keep targets out at a decent distance, it is now a capable turret. Unfortunately, it is also currently bugged and on the known issues list for not being able to actually damage targets that are in close. So right now, the patch changes are getting a thumbs down from me until this issue is sorted out, but I'd expect it to probably jump to an overall pretty good thumbs up positive once that major issue is sorted out. Also, I wanted to mention that we've heard Arrowhead say they wanted to create a test server environment as far back as the Escalation of Freedom update, hell, probably before then. And I can't help but believe if they were active, these close-range fire issues would have been found and reported long before Update 6.2.2 went live. The gas changes included in this update earned both a thumbs up and a thumbs down, as gas now slows targets, which is good, that's the upvote, but gas now also slows us down. And since the visual effects on gas versus where they damage and slows targets don't exactly match up, you can often find yourself taking dots when you swear you are not in a gas cloud, and the next thing you know, you are dead and crumpled over on the ground. I think this could be a straight positive change though, but again, it needs refinement to get there. Also, while we're talking about being gassy, strange transition, I admit the Sterilizer received new visuals and a lingering gas cloud that travels with the wind. And I mean, it's something, but at this point, I'm thinking it would be better if we could just get a system like what we have in the gas nades or the gas turrets. So this one on the Sterilizer is a straight downvote, at least for me. Fleshmobs charging and clipping into objects has been an issue for what now, 11 months, 12, maybe more? And it seems like now they actually stick to the laws of physics. So despite how long it took, that's a thumbs up for me. Not getting clubbed to death from underneath the ground while attached to a terminal is definitely a nice change. I also like the change they made to the Warstriders, giving it a medium armor pin hip joint weak point. Now it takes a bit of aim and it's not an insta-kill requiring just a little bit of skill to hit it, but we've been asking for something on Warstriders to open up more options for dealing with them outside of anti-tank weapons. And I'm a big fan of build options, so here again it's another thumbs up. The change they made to the Illuminate Tesla towers also earns a thumbs up. Again, the changes opened up more options for dealing with them now, not requiring the use of an explosive. The Bile Titan spew changes were actually a little mixed, as I didn't think they were overly crazy before, but again, that's just me. Anyways, their spew explosive radius was changed both on the inner and outer edges, and for me, again, this is kind of a push change. It's neither good nor bad. Once we got into the enemy buffs and changes though, which were definitely numerous in this patch, it really had a lot of people looking at it, comparing all the enemy buffs versus what they thought would be a mech-centric patch, and it led to a lot of pushback. Seeing Raiders, Turrets, Devastators, Berserkers, and Hulks all receive durable damage buffs was a real head-scratcher. Basically, any automatons that did not receive those durable damage gigabuffs prior to Cyberstan were here on this list. Now we'll talk about the durable damage dilemma in a moment, but Arrowhead has to come at this with a solid and well thought out plan, because they said they needed to buff all these enemies because our tanks were too good, which I still disagree with, but the side effect of all these durable damage increases is that everything else a Helldiver has in their armored vehicle inventories was turned into paper mache. So more Automaton durable damage buffs with no discernible plan coming from the studio earns a thumbs down. I did want to isolate a few of the bot changes though, starting off with the shield Devastators, and the changes they made to its formerly indestructible shield earns both a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Now, players have been asking for the shield to be made mortal for years now, and Arrowhead has ignored them and never gone in to change it. And seeing it now reduced to heavy armor with a health pool and durability, I mean, it's great, finally. But the thumbs down here is that we as players had to wait years for them to do something about it, and it was only done on the eve of the Exo Experts Warbond, with a mech in it, of course, using a shield. And everyone knows this shield was only changed because we Helldivers were never going to be getting an Indestructium shield versus Devastators that did have one, and you know what would have happened from there, and it would have caused even more heated feedback towards the studio. Seeing some of the changes they made to bot tanks, including buffing up their main health pools again while buffing the armor plating on the back of the main body, earns a thumbs down because I feel it wasn't needed. Getting in behind a tank always took a bit of positioning and patience, and seeing the reward for the tactic now being mostly taken away served no purpose other than to cause players another little bit of time and grief. However, the change on the barrager tanks to the front and back of the launch tubes by buffing their health was overall okay. I mean, they were pretty weak to begin with, so, you know, they picked up a little bit of needed durability. So, thumbs up on that one. In terms of the Terminid buffs to every one of their enemy variants, the devs explained that this faction had fallen behind when compared to the bots and squid, and so they went in with the durable damage hammer and jumped up many of these enemy values, sometimes doubling them. Again, we've seen the discussion of power creep discussed in the Helldivers community when it comes to our weapons, often pointing the finger at the sweeper shotgun, but where is that same finger pointing now when every single enemy has received a bunch of additional durable damage? I'm giving the Terminid damage buffs a thumbs down, not because they're out of control, but more so due to Arrowhead not having a decent plan for these implementations, other than trying to dismantle Helldivers' armored capabilities in order to reduce us to an on-foot fighting force. Were things like the tank powerful versus the bugs? Yes, and many would argue they're supposed to be. You've got a massive main cannon and a bunch of HMG rounds at your disposal. Why shouldn't you be turning half a bazillion bugs into Swiss cheese? However, others point to the balance imbalance, and they say that's why the durable damage changes were needed. Again, for me, I'm not looking for a press W win game experience, but I want to feel powerful for the few minutes my armor is alive and firing rounds downrange. Which brings us to the Hive Guard changes. Oh, those Hive Guards. Yeah, we've seen a heated exchange between those that were in favor and opposed to this change. And I listened to the dev log at least 3 times, and I sort of get what they were going for, but buffing their frontal armor feels like it was the easiest and therefore laziest change they could have made. If the Hive Guard is supposed to be the phalanx unit that pushes ahead using its armor to protect the units behind it, then why does it behave exactly the opposite of that? Slowly plodding along and stopping when shot at is not what the devs described this enemy unit to be, and buffing its armor up to AP4, while not game-changing, did enough to torque players that they really started to push back. Now, could you still crush them with fire, gas, or a well-aimed shot to their fleshy bits? Yes, absolutely. But when your turret would have the misfortune of locking onto one of these things and wasting all of its ammo firing ricochets up into orbit, it could definitely get frustrating. Now, is there a way to make Hive Guards interesting? Yes. Is buffing their frontal armor while reducing their health pools and not changing a single aspect about the way they approach combat the way to do it? No. And that's why the AP4 change earns a thumbs down. It's not a skill issue here. It's not game-changing, but it was the wrong move made at the wrong time. And when we speak of the optics of this patch, this was clearly something the player base wasn't thrilled with, hence the upcoming revert. Now, as you can tell, I left the mech changes until last because, like all of patch 6.2.2, there's some good here, there's some bad, there's definitely some ugly, and there's also some changes here that are reworks, moving things horizontally to and fro, but really not accomplishing anything meaningful. So, the doubling of the overall health pool from 850 to 1600 is a good thing, That's for sure. It means that our mechs can survive a little longer. Couple that change with the next two, your exosuit can't die until your main health pool is depleted, and the removal of the critical spot insta-kills, and in general, players are seeing that their mechs are staying upright and in the fight much more than they did before. So thumbs up on all three of those changes. However, our mechs are now also 50% more vulnerable to acid attacks. We have more damageable zones around the cockpit, and we can also now be staggered, even when we're inside and piloting our exosuits, which means that for every positive we picked up with the health changes, we sort of lost it in the changes I just mentioned. Also, the arms and legs moved their former constitution health over to a singular health pool for both of these appendages. So in the end, neither picked up more armor or additional health. In fact, only the arms picked up 50% explosive damage resistance while maintaining their former and hidden durable percentages of 80%. We're already ammo limited while piloting a mech, so players were really hoping for more armor, customization, maybe a strat launcher, something to really beef up these limited use stratagems, and there's not much here. Again, and a mech buff patch to complement the Mech Warbond. I'll also mention this. Go try out the mechs on something besides the speed burst bugs. Right now, the most popular mech is the Breakthrough, but I'm telling you, go take something out like the Patriot or the E-Man onto a bot planet and then compare that to what you felt versus the Spore Burst bugs, because these bugs really don't spit all that much acid at you, instead relying on melee attacks, which when you're in a mech, you can see those coming a mile away and you can start picking them off well before they get up under you. However, when you take on a faction that specializes in range and packs explosive weapons aplenty, your overall mech experience will change in a hurry. I talked about this in my pre and post patch videos because, I did test the durability, specifically of the mech arms, for how much damage they could actually take. For instance, when I used the Slugger, I could take off an E-Man arm in 5 shots, both before and after this patch, because it's a weapon that is not explosive based, and so the arm changes Arrowhead made didn't affect it in the slightest. The crossbow took 2 shots to take off both arms together before the patch due to it being an explosive weapon with AoE. And after the patch, it took just 1 additional shot to take off the primary arm and another to take off the secondary arm, which is down to the explosive damage resist they added on. But the point I'm making is that the changes to the most valuable piece of the mechs, the arms, was little to nothing, earning this part of the mech changes a downvote. And of course, I can't finish the mech conversation off without at least saying a few things about the Breakthrough and Lumberer mechs. Of the two, the Breakthrough is the clear winner with its shield and the scatter cannon arm, which is overall pretty effective. I thought I would prefer the Lumberer, and maybe I will once the crisper firearm is sorted out, but with that thing not damaging targets in close, along with me feeling the anti-tank cannon arm is a smidge underpowered, I'd take the Breakthrough 10 out of 10 times if given the choice between these two, at least for now, until the Lumberer is properly sorted. With tomorrow's planned revert of the Hive Guard changes, the bugs will overall feel slightly different to take on, but the intriguing, and dare I say, pressing matter here is what Arrowhead has done to durable damage. Now, besides the ballistic shield and mechs, every other Helldiver vehicle was left untouched, meaning they are still all made of papier-mâché. Turrets are instantly nuked versus any faction firing projectiles, and the Gator oil drilling rig can easily be defeated while trying to get it to an objective. And if the newly buffed Hive Lord durable damage comes anywhere close to it, or it gets strafed by a Bile Dragoon, you are flirting with instantaneous disaster. I'm pretty sure we're all waiting for what Arrowhead will roll out tomorrow, because they've already mentioned they wanted to expand on and explain what their plan was for durable damage. Now, personally, I've already mentioned this several times in many of my previous uploads, but I think we need to unwind the changes back to pre-Cyberstand levels and then start over from there. There's also the burning question of what Arrowhead's plan is for the Helldivers and their armor. What levels are we supposed to be reaching in terms of firepower and durability versus our enemies? I mean, are we always meant to be inferior to our foes for armor plating and being able to sustain ourselves? Harkening back to the review ratings and Steam sales charts, it's pretty clear that the Warbond and patch were not very popular, bringing to light the changes themselves and what Arrowhead's vision for the future of Helldivers is actually doing to its player base. I'm going to be watching and waiting for tomorrow's announcement and, of course, anticipating every word they release because, in a way, this is one of, if not the major divisions within our community and game right now. Are we forever supposed to be fighting overwhelming odds with slightly inferior weapons? And if so, can someone at Arrowhead just come out and say the quiet part out loud? I mean, we're not looking for a cakewalk gaming experience here. Just balance the damn thing out and put us on par with our enemies. And from there, it's up to us, the players, to handle the rest and achieve that victory. Or at least, that's my take on it all. But here's where I turn to you, my viewers, for your valuable insight. Sound off about the patch changes? Do you agree with the ratings? And if you don't, why not? Also, when and what do you think Arrowhead is planning to do with durable damage? Please remember to hit subscribe and to ring the notifications bell. If you're on mobile, you can swipe to hype the video. And before I sign off, a huge thanks goes out to all of our hardcore channel supporters. Until the next one, this is 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏